but I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So just give it a couple minutes for people to jump in. All right, so it is 2 o'clock, so I don't want to keep people waiting. So I'm just going to jump in, and then people can peruse on as they feel like it. So thank you guys for coming to this meeting. I wanted to talk a little bit about SEO because as you are migrating to the web, and as there's a lot more people who are on the web and searching for things on the web, especially now that we're kind of forced at home and not really, foot traffic doesn't really exist, that SEO becomes more and more relevant as there's going to be more and more competition in terms of how to find, how to rank yourselves on the search. So the first thing I want to do is go through the concepts of SEO and talk about what is SEO and what is search engine optimization. So search engine optimization is basically figuring out how Google or other search engines work to optimize what your position on that search engine is, right? So imagine Google. We're going to talk mostly about Google today, but a lot of these concepts work for all search engines. So Bing, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, just to name a few, even YouTube, a lot of these concepts work for YouTube, right? So when search engines were first getting started, I think the first one was in the early 90s, they would, it was literally do you remember like an Ask Jeeves? Like you're asking it a question and they are responding with the most relevant information for you, right? And Google, which was on the forefront of SEO, was in the forefront of search engines, started to become one of the bigger ones in the early 90s. And what they realized very quickly, what search engines realized very quickly, was that they basically wanted to give you the most relevant information back to whatever your question was, because that's what got you coming back to that search engine, right? These are businesses. They are in competition with each other. Bing and Yahoo and Google. Bing and Yahoo is one company, but Firefox, these browsers are, these search engines are businesses, right? And they want to be able to one up the other people. So think of it as a restaurant, right? So if you are going to a restaurant and you, are, and on the front of that restaurant, it says, greatest fish in the entire world here, right? And you're walking by and you're like, oh, I could go for some fish, right? That sounds awesome. And you go into that restaurant and you ask for fish and they serve you chicken, right? You're like, that's not what I asked for. I thought you guys are advertising fish and I wanted fish, and you get here and it's chicken, and that's not what I wanted, right? So are you going to go back to that restaurant? No. You're going to go to another restaurant that advertises fish and gives you fish, right? So that is basically the concept of SEO, right? These search engines are trying to give you the most relevant content back to what you are asking for, right? And, the way that they figure out what relevant content has changed significally over time. And that is what the concept of SEO is based out of. It's essentially learning the most relevant, getting the most relevant content to serve to your user or serve to the user so that you show up as a, when somebody asks a question to Google or to a search engine, you show up as an answer to that question, right? So you want to always think about, if I am a fish restaurant, am I serving fish, right? And that is basically how you have to think of SEO, because you want to be able to provide the content that is going to trigger the search to say, this is relevant content for this question, right? That this person is asking, right? So just as an example, I pulled up what is SEO in Google, right? What is the first thing that I see here? I literally see a title that says, what is SEO, right? This is the title of this article, right? Which is the exact same thing that I put into the search engine, right? If you look down, what is SEO? Beginner's Guide to SEO. What is SEO? What is SEO? What is SEO? What is SEO, right? Google is serving me back the exact relevant content that I just asked for, right? In the title itself, because it is finding all of these different websites all over the web. Google crawler has gone onto these different websites, scanned what that content is, scan what the title of that content is, right? So if I click into one of these, what is SEO, right? Scan, what the title is, what the meta title, what is in the background information, what goes into SEO, and is looking through all this content and says, wow, this is really similar to this person's question, right? What is SEO? So this must be relevant content that Google want to serve to this person because I think that person is going to have a good experience on this page based off of what is on this page, and then want to come back to Google, right? And that's all this is. It is Google trying to be the best at answering the user's question with relevant content. I'm sure you and everybody here has been frustrated before if you type in something into a search engine, like I've gone onto Bing before, typed in something. This happened just now, right before I was going onto this conversation, like this webinar. I actually typed in Zune instead of Zoom, right? Because I had a typo in there. And it gave me nothing in terms of Zoom. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I'm obviously looking for Zoom right now, right? So I would be like, that's dumb, right? Oh, did you mean Zoom? No, I wanted Zoom, right? And so like, if I don't get what I want, right, from the search result, then I am much less likely to come back to Google after that point, right? Now, Google has made a name for itself as the search engine to use, but they've done that through time by being the best at serving relevant content, right? So how do you basically tell Google that you have that relevant content for what you want to search for? And this is broken down in a lot of different ways, because you really want to take a step back and understand what is the best way to rank for something, right? So what are the questions that you think users are going to ask that your content would be relevant for, right? So if you are, for instance, a construction company, do you want, like, what is the best best word, keyword, or keyword phrase to rank for that will bring the right traffic for you? So you really want to have a sense of what you are trying to rank for. And then once you have that concept, right, then you can really build a content hierarchy to help show. Now, I want to take a little step back before we get into content, because I want to talk about how search engines have changed over the years. So the number one thing that used to be powerful for ranking in Google and search engines was this concept of backlinks. And what backlinks are different, and we're going to get into a whole section about backlinks, and I'll reiterate this, but I want to talk a little bit about how it's changed over time. So backlinks were basically links on different websites that pointed back to your website, because the concept of that was that, the more people who listed you on websites, the more trustworthy you must be, right? Because it's the same thing of like a new doctor just comes to town, right? And this doctor is, completely new. I know this doctor, right? But everybody else in the town doesn't know this doctor, right? But if I start saying, hey, this doctor is pretty good, then a couple of my friends are going to go to this doctor. He's going to start getting more and more trustworthy. Those friends are going to tell, people, and the more friends who tell people, the more people are going to go to that doctor, right? So Google was basically built on that idea in the beginning of like, these, I represent a website, and that doctor represents a website, and we're talking about his SEO, right? So like, when I tell a friend, they put it on their websites. Their websites are now pointing back to this doctor, and more people now will see that, it's like that's a trustworthy doctor. Now, people started manipulating that over time, right? They started figuring out that if you just push out links onto different websites, it doesn't matter how trustworthy or not those websites are. People would build websites just to put links on them. People would use like all these like really, they would like add things in comment sections of different blogs, and they would just like, it would just became a wild west of link building, right? And so Google caught on to this, and then through time, they made a bunch of different algorithm updates to where it is right now, which is much more experience-based, right? It is what really matters, and backlinks still very much matter, and we'll get to them in a little bit, but it's the type of backlink that matters right now. But also what's very important is the actual experience that somebody has on the website. And Google is looking for signals on those websites. Most websites have Google Analytics. This is where it gets a lot of this data, but it's trying to understand how people are using it. Do they read the post? How long are they staying there? Are they clicking through the website, right? Are they going to multiple pages on the website? Are they spending a long time reading that content? Are they clicking on things? Are they scrolling, right? All this data is making up what is important. Now, if you, like, for instance, if you go to a website and you leave right away, that tells Google that that content that it served it was not relevant, right? So you have one sentence on a page that says, what is SEO? I go to this page, says, what is SEO? That's it, I'm gonna leave, right? It doesn't have any other content. And so Google's like, even though it says what is SEO as part of the title, even though I thought that was relevant at first, it's not necessarily a good site or a good representation of what is SEO. And therefore, I'm going to show it lower in the search engines, right? So content, you might have heard this phrase, but content is king, right? Content is what is the backbone of all of SEO, right? It's finding what content is necessary to put on your page. Is the content made in a way that shows that is structured for Google to understand what that content is and the hierarchy of that content? And then also, is that content engaging? Is it good for not only a bot, but is it good for a person? And that person is sending signals on that website, which is sending signals to Google, which is basically saying, this is a good site. And more than ever, that includes user experience, and that includes site speed, which we'll talk about as well. So I just wanted to give you a backstory on how Google has changed over time, and and how these search engines have adapted over time, and give you the context of, so when we start talking through some of these concepts, you have a much better understanding of what SEO is right now, because you will talk to companies and you will talk to people who are SEO, specialists who do bad things that, to try to manipulate Google, right? And that is called black hat SEO. There's two different types of SEO, black hat and white hat. Black hat is trying to stay in front of Google, Google's algorithm, and trick it, right? Like as if it didn't know any better, and basically stay one step ahead of the algorithm and trick whatever the current algorithm is into ranking the site higher. Now, Black Hat is very effective short term. You can get your site up to the top of Google in like probably, less than a month. However, it's very inconsistent and you can be penalized for it. And then you would potentially be blacklisted by Google and that site will have a very hard time ever ranking again. There's white hat SEO, which is basically the slower, more steady. It's the rabbit and the hare. It's the hare. It's using writing good content, building good site architecture, and optimizing the actual site experience for SEO as opposed to trying to cut corners. And because Google always does new algorithm updates, for instance, mobile was a huge one. Mobile was not part of the algorithm at all for years. And then when mobile became very important, Google rolled out a mobile algorithm update, which said, if your site isn't optimized for mobile, we're going to hurt it in its rankings now, right? So, Google is trying to adapt for the times, and since the technology is rapidly moving forward, Google wants to be at the head of it and stay up to date with what is important from a technological standpoint. If VR site experiences start to be incredibly popular, it wants to be there. So a lot of SEO is adapting to what is the current trend. And but mostly it's content is king. Mostly it is, if you have a good site with good content and people like your content and they're posting it on their stuff because they like it, and then your site is built well, that is the best for SEO. So now I want to get into the elements of keyword research. So everything starts with a keyword, right? Or a phrase that you are trying to rank each page for. And just like an essay or something that you are building, right? Each page is a document, right? Each page is basically an essay that you are trying to communicate to your teacher for, good credit, right? And when you think about building an essay has a hierarchy and mainly a concept, right? So like if you think of it as a single page document, that has content for a specific reason, and you can think through what, that keyword should be, right? So say again, I wanted to rank for, this is just a silly one, but say we wanted to rank for digital agency. That's not a silly one. That's something that I'll show you a silly one later. Say we wanted to rank for digital agency, and we wanted to, oops, this is my tag manager stuff. Say we wanted to rank for digital agency. Well, we would want to have an entire page dedicated to that concept, right? And we would want to find it in its most relevant form. So how do we find keywords, right? How do we know what people are searching for in general that would be relevant to us? So say, we have a business. I'm going to switch to construction company. Say we have a construction company business. Now, there are different tools that exist to help find a keyword. The best way is to start thinking, what is this page about, right? Is this page about, I am a construction company? Okay, that's great. So the whole, we need a page for construction company. Now think of it as, what falls underneath construction company, right? And we're starting to talk about content hierarchy. So underneath construction company is, there is, street construction. We do house construction. Now, underneath house construction, there is, roofing, and there is infrastructure, and there is, say they also do plumbing. There's bathroom plumbing, sink plumbing, right? So all these things fall underneath as if you were categorizing kind of a hierarchy of this data. And each one of those should be pages. Every single page has a concept, right? And that concept is what you are trying to be found for. So if you are a construction company and you are looking to be found for street construction or filling, even deeper, filling a pothole, right? Then that needs an individual page about that content, right? Because that content should all be about fixing a pothole. And it could be, the services that you do, it could be, a DIY thing. But if you want your company to rank for that, it needs to exist on your site with that. It shouldn't just be a line that says we pick, we fill potholes. It should have content devoted to it on a single page, right? So how you find what people are actually searching for, and and do it in a way that you're more likely to succeed. So there's a couple of different options for you, okay? And these are some tools that exist, and I'm not going to harp on them now. I'm going to talk a little bit later about the actual tools. I see Richard just joined us, and he's an SEO specialist. I'm going to have him talk about some tools as well. But you want to think through where to find these keywords, and you can use tools like Google AdWords. You can use tools like Google itself, which I'll show you later, or SEM Rush, to find like how people are searching for this data, or start searching for these queries, and where to start and what to build these terms around, or these pages around. And so once you have a good keyword, right, you can start to build your SEO strategy. Once you have all these different, like the content hierarchy of what you are trying to rank for, you can start to optimize your content. So we talked a little bit about content hierarchy and what that means. So when you're starting out with a website, or when you're starting out with a content strategy for a website, you want to think through every single page as, what is that page's purpose for, right? What am I trying to achieve with these pages? And you want, like, the SEO on-page content is usually split up into two different categories: pages and posts. And this is where blogging comes in, and we can talk a little bit about the specifics of blogging. But pages are your high-level concepts. They are basically your services, what you are doing, and the keyword should focus directly on that service, or that specific concept of what you're doing, and that shouldn't really change, right? Nothing, like, you're not getting too granular, but you are talking about specifically, this is what you do, and you want to structure it with a hierarchy, like we talked about before, of like, what's the highest level of this? So for us, it's digital agency, right? That's what we want to build our highest level of SEO for. And then within digital agency, we do these services, right? Landing pages, digital marketing. Actually, digital marketing would be one, and then websites would be one, and then I think, what do I have in here? You can even just see it here. Digital marketing one, analytics, conversion rate optimization, content. And you can see here in our site, we're breaking down certain ones into other ones. So digital marketing as a high level concept, and in each one of those, we have something for landing pages. We have something for pay-per-click. We have something for retargeting. So these all fit into the structure. And if you think of it kind of as a, what is the highest level? And then within that, it breaks into, individual pages. And then, within that is even more granular and even more granular and even more granular, to kind of get each one of these to help the higher ones up, which are relatively, they tend to be more difficult, is the content of like the higher, more competitive keywords tend to be the ones that are not as granular, like digital agency and, for instance, digital marketing. So having granular pages help, and ranking for those help the higher ones rank as well. And then this is kind of where anything that doesn't really fit into a specific specific content that is part of your services and part of your packaging and part of you, that is where blogging comes in. This is where you want to answer people's questions that are relevant to your business, but aren't necessarily part of your specific services. So I might do something on, top 10 reasons Google Analytics is great for websites, right? So when people are looking up, why should I put Google Analytics on my website? I have a blog for that. Now or I have content for that that's relevant to them. Now that feeds them into my analytics services, but they're not looking for my analytics service right now. They're looking to understand Google Analytics, but I am providing them content for that, right? So that is basically their starting point, their entryway into my website. And then the website then provides a funnel to other parts of the site that help eventually lead back to my services, and shows that I am either an expert in my field or that, I'm providing them, tools that they will now associate with my brand, right? So, having kind of a blog that pushes people in to the website in a strategic way is can capture a whole bunch of foot traffic. It's like basically having a sign outside your door that says like, or like if this was a physical shop, it's like having a sign outside that says, free ice cream, and they come in for the free ice cream, and then you sell them on insurance. It's basically getting somebody into the store and then providing them with what they need to then make a decision later on choosing you as a business, right? So I just wanted to show you an example of that, which is Philadelphia parking ticket. So we have nothing to do with the PPA. This is Philadelphia, but we developed a blog, right, that is all about how to bypass Philly parking ticket. They look up by ticket number, right? They only allow you to look up your ticket on the PPA by ticket number and not by your license plate, even though license plate exists there. So we thought that was really annoying. I actually lost my ticket and I wanted to pay by my license plate. So we developed an app or a little code that allows you to easily basically bypass that to pay your ticket by just your license plate, right? Now, people who are searching for this, right, pay parking ticket Philly, right? They're not searching for for a new website, right? But this is giving them content, right, that is answering a question that they need to then, which is ranking for that. And it's a much easier thing to rank for than digital agency. Now, a lot of foot traffic in that door will help us as a digital agency rank for some of the harder keywords, right? The more we get from people coming in and interacting with our content, and also like building up our blogs, will help with the overall website's SEO juice for Google. So that is a little bit about the actual content hierarchy. And then there's also the hierarchy on the actual page itself. So when building a page, you want to think about what is the main concept of that page, right? What do you want it to title it that is going to be the best to your keyword? Usually you want the title of that blog or whatever to be similar, if not identical, to what you are trying to rank for, right? So a lot of times you'll see these things that are like 7, advanced SEO tips or something like that. So that when people are looking for SEO tips, you show up, right? Or you might be looking for something like, or somebody might be looking for best, shoes to put on, or they wouldn't be searching that exactly, but best most comfortable shoes, right? Something that is going to show up for that is going to have that close to or identical to that. It's comfortable sneakers, right? That is the first thing that came up for me, right? And then if I go into this, I see the 21 of the most comfortable sneakers and where to buy them, right? That is what their content, that's what their H1, that's what their heading is, right? So if you think about this as an essay, it's the essay title, right? And this is basically showing the user exactly what they are looking for. I typed in comfortable shoes. I'm seeing 21 of the most comfortable sneakers. I clicked on that. Now I'm going to read this article. Now, if you look further, right, of like what people are writing in here, we have then different shoes that are listed, right? And then within each different shoe, right, there is a paragraph about that shoe, right? So this is the H1, this is the header, this is the title of the essay, and then they give a little paragraph that relates to that title of that essay, and then within each section is now this concept of an H2, a header 2, which is basically your paragraph title, right, as if you were going and writing an essay, and each one of these has within it information that relates to just that paragraph, and then it goes into the next one, which relates back to that next paragraph, which is an additional header. And so they're structuring this page content to be basically the structure of an essay, and that is what is telling Google that this has content that makes sense for them as a as to give back to me, to my search query. That is a way that you want to start thinking about writing content for your website if you want it to be SEO friendly, by adding writing it as if it were an essay with a title and a paragraph header, first paragraph, paragraph header, first paragraph, and making that page have a hierarchy of whatever that full concept is. So if it is comfortable shoes, or if it is sewer line rebuild or whatever, you're basically breaking it out as that's the main concept, and then these are all the sub parts of that. And then within each sub part, you are building with it, a content within each sub part. So that is basically the principles of on-page SEO. And I'm going to jump to technical SEO real quick, and then I'm going to bring in Richard to talk a little bit about off-page SEO. And we can kind of go back and forth a little bit there, and then we'll jump into tools to help and go through a couple of tools that are helpful to get started. So with technical SEO, every site is built with code, and Google is well aware of what that code is and evaluating that code on sometimes a daily basis to understand what is how that site is built. Two, is the content in that site well structured from a code standpoint? What is this information on the site, and is it in the back end in an easily formatted way, which is basically called a meta title and meta description? And is the site itself built well? Does it load fast? And does it have a sitemap so I can easily understand it, right? So first thing, let's talk about a sitemap. A sitemap is essentially a restaurant menu that you are giving to Google bot who just came into your website and is like, what can I get to eat here, right? And it's very clear as to these are the appetizers, these are the entrees, this is the dessert, and this is how it's all structured and how you can get it, right? And it's just like this kind of like bullet point list of of the different pages and the structure of your website that you're giving it, right? So sitemaps are just a nice way for Google to understand your site, and they can usually exist as an XML file that you submit to Google Search Console, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that allow it to see how your site is structured really clearly. Site speed has become incredibly important for this will be fun for the video. If everyone can see me now, I have a cat on my head. Site speed has become very, very important for Google. So right now, if a site loads more than, I believe, 2 seconds, Google starts not ranking it well. And there are statistics of companies who have lost money like per second that it's loading. It's like every second that a site takes to load beyond 2 seconds, there are statistics of sites e-commerce sites losing money per second that it loads afterwards. So it's incredibly important for SEO purposes, as well as for just the overall health of the site, to have good site speed. Richard, I saw that you put on your camera. Do you want to say something real quick? I can unmute. I think I just unmuted you. Yeah, cool. Should be unmuted. No? Can you try unmuting yourself? I don't know why it's not letting me do that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just checking in. I completely agree. I think that the technical aspect as far as site speed is probably one of maybe the most critical thing as far as getting the site ranking well, because you could have the great content you're talking about. You could have the on-page things set up perfectly. You could have the right keywords. But if someone clicks onto your site and then it takes a long time to load and they immediately leave and without even seeing your content, without even seeing your site, and they go back to Google and click on something else, no matter how good your website is optimized for SEO, Google will push that down back in the ranking, saying, okay, people are going to the site, but they're leaving. So having the proper technical SEO setup, site architecture is great, but site speed is probably one of the #1 most important things you can do, as far as, especially with a lot of people getting pushed into the digital space now that haven't been there before. Having your website properly built and fast and responsive on every device is absolutely critical to get high conversion rates and high SEO rankings.
Yeah, and that is becoming more and more and more prevalent now. Like in the beginning of this, and Richard kind of jumped on in at 15 minutes. And so real quick, at the beginning of this, I talked just about like how just the algorithm has changed over time. And like one of the things that is like becoming more and more and more important is site speed. And it's like becoming to a like now when it's being when with the algorithm, like that is probably, you're right, the #1 factor, one of the most critical factors to the SEO score, right? Because it's just like, if people, because it's so experience-based now, because the algorithm is so experience-based and not necessarily like backlink-based or anything, it's like, how are they interacting with the site itself? If they're not even getting to the site, if they're bouncing before they get there, then it doesn't even, it tells Google right away, this is not a site that I should pay attention to.
Exactly. It's like the first domino that causes everything else, because there's so many other factors that are based on people staying on your site, time on page, user activity, exit rate, people going back to Google and finding something else. And if they click on your site and they don't have a chance to get all those other factors right, you're just basically getting a 0 for all of them right off the bat because your site didn't load fast enough.
Yep. So site speed, and then once they're there, concentrating on interactions, right? If you're not doing anything on that site, if you aren't clicking through that site, if you are not scrolling up and down on that site, there's no way for Google to understand if you're actually engaging with the content or not. So if you just have a static page that, all the content is just pushed up to the top of the section, right? That like and there's no scroll and they don't click through anything else, that is to Google is going to say, this must not be an engaging site because there's nothing on there that is causing your mouse to move. You're not clicking, you're not interacting. And then once you exit, you are saying, basically to Google that I did not get what I wanted out of here, right? So all these signals on the site of, interactions and content scrolls and, navigation through the site are going to tell Google that this is a site worth, ranking for whatever that person entered in there with. So that is also just to talk a little bit about the UX and site architecture of the site. So making sure that there are things for people to do and content for them to read once they get there. So even if your site is loading incredibly fast, if they're not finding what they need, they're going to get frustrated, leave, and basically tell the Google signals that the site is not fulfilling them from a relevant standpoint.
And this is not to be confused with like burying the answer further down the page, because that'll have a negative impact. So the thing is, you have to answer the question pretty much as quickly as possible, because I'm sure everyone who searches Google sees that a huge percentage of searches now are what they're called zero-click searches, because of the information they need is actually getting pulled from the website and living in what's called the featured snippet on Google. So if you look up, the height of a celebrity or how to, anything like that, you'll see that the first thing you see is, well, that's a weird example, nothing comes up, but you'll see,
You just saw it.
They're pulling that information from the site, so you don't have to click anything at all. And there's a lot more, if you look up, what kind of flowers there are or anything like that, you'll see the featured snippet. And that's because it's right on the front of the page, probably answer in the first paragraph. And then the key to keeping people on the page is delivering value below that. So giving over and above what people are searching for while answering their search quickly. It's pretty much when you search, or when you're trying to create a page that ranks, like, okay, what would I want to experience when I'm looking for this? I would want my answer right away, and then I would want more information on top of it. So that's really how you have to craft your page, really thinking with the search intent and the user in mind.
Exactly. That's just a very quick overview of technical SEO. There are obviously tons of other factors. Are your site built well? We talked a little bit about it last week, going through the different website platforms that exist and why some are better than others when it comes to SEO. Well, it's like, how is the site actually built? What is the platform that they are on? And pick a good platform from the beginning, because if it's a bad platform that you're building a site on, that's going to cause site speed issues. That's going to cause clunky code, and that's just going to cause Google to say this is not a site worth ranking in general. So just making sure that whatever platform you use is healthy, and that you are able to change things around if needed, from an SEO perspective. And then there are additional things that you can do. I'm not going to talk about robust.txt because we're running low on time. I want to get into off-page SEO, but there are different things that you can do from a code standpoint to say this page is important, this page isn't important in terms of my content. So off-page SEO, and we talked a little bit about this at the very beginning. This is building links, and when we say building links, there is a very specific way you should be building links now. This was a practice early on in SEO for a long time, actually. People would build links on really crappy sites, or just make sites and push back links to their website. And this would cause this would be very good in the beginning, but now Google has updated their algorithm to have a much better sense of what a quality link is. So when we're talking about building links and like getting your website on other people's websites, you want to be looking for high quality websites that are probably better ranked than you to get those links on that are relevant in your space. And that's one of the biggest parts of this, is the relevancy of it being within your space, because that is going to help you. There are getting do you want to talk a little bit about this, Richard, as well, in terms of like what makes up a good backlink?
Yeah, I was trying to turn off my Slack notifications.
Oh, you're fine. I have tons of it going on as well.
Yeah, but yeah, backlinks, like what Josh was talking about, it's essentially the way Google is essentially a net of trust. So when you're building backlinks, if you have a really, really trusted site like Forbes or Washington Post or something, and they point to your site, that makes Google say, okay, this really trusted site is putting their faith in this site, so it boosts it up and builds your domain trust. So when you're building backlinks, you want to focus on getting really high quality links. And like Josh was talking about as well, there's a lot of ways that people used to dupe Google, but it's something called, you can do reciprocal links. So you reach out to a site like, hey, I'll give you a link, you give me a link. But Google is now cracking down on all that. And the general rule of thumb is to think like a Googler. Like if it's something that Google would want you to do, that's great. If you think they might not like that, they definitely won't, and you shouldn't do it. So that would be a way that you'll get your site pushed down the rankings, and you'll never really get any traction there. So the best way to build links off the page, off-page link building is to just really build high-quality content, content that people want to read. And when you build out your content, include links to other pieces of content. And then a good strategy to building those links is reaching out to those people and saying, hey, I include your content in one of the pieces I just wrote. You know, take a look at this. And there's a million templates out there that you can use. But the key to building high quality backlinks is just being authentic. Like Josh was saying, you really can't fake these. You have to have trusted sites pushing your content, and it's actually providing value to your users. And that's the most sure way to get to build your domain rating and domain trust. It's just to build great content that people want to read.
Yep. Right. So you like, even though there's all of these ways that you can learn the algorithm, we always want to go back to that content is king, right? If you write good quality content that people enjoy, people are going to respond to it. They're going to share it. They're going to read it. They're going to want to put it on their sites, right? Which is basically, the best way you can get in front of Google's eyes. There are don't get me wrong, there are other technical things you want to do. You want to have a fast site, and you want to, have the content structured well. But ultimately, you want to write something that people want to read. And that's going to help you in the long run anyway, because even if Google, puts you up at the very top of their search engine, and then you have crappy content that no one is getting anything from, you're a business. You're not going to benefit, from that content. You are going to turn people away, and they're not going to do anything once they get there, right? So you want to move people with your content, and that's going to help your business beyond what SEO can do. But it also helps, from an SEO perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you're saying, you have to cover your SEO bases as far as the on-page stuff, as far as selecting the right keywords and then having it optimized for that, having it in the title, having it in the meta description, having it, throughout your article, mentioning it and what they call. I think I saw you were talking about how when you look up shoes, it comes with sneakers. That's what is called late LSI terms, latent semantic indexing, which is keys, words that are very similar to what you're looking for. So if you're writing an article about coffee, mention Joe and Java and all these things that people call coffee. So that will let Google know very, very clearly what your article is about. Because you have to understand that there's two entities that are going to be reading your content. One is the user, so they have to enjoy it, and the second one is Google, which is a robot. So Google is getting very, 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 very smart, but it's not magic. You have to talk about your key terms. You have to talk about what the topic is consistently and mention it. So Google will understand, okay, this is what the content is. I'll try pushing this on the rankings, putting it, in the top page and see how it fares, see if people like it. But if you don't have the SEO bases covered, you won't really have a chance to generate any organic traffic. You can push it out to your user base, and you can have a nice spike at the beginning of people sharing it, but it won't have a long tail life at the end after that initial spike, unless it's properly optimized with SEO.
Yep. Real quick, I also wanted to just talk through local SEO. It was in a very short amount of time, but Google My Business is basically a site that exists for local businesses to put themselves on Google Map and give a little bit more information about it. So if I were to go and type in, for instance, digital agency Philadelphia, you should see us right here, right, which is pretty good. And basically, this is Google My Business. This is basically information about our business, what we put here, different reviews, and you can optimize this through images, through the tags that you put on this. So definitely if you are a local business who wants to, now we're all moving towards digital right now anyway, so it's like kind of silly, but at the same time, once we can walk outside again, I think there will be a lot of foot traffic, hopefully. And you want to be in, on Google My Business, which will help your own site as well. And your site having good SEO should help your local listing as well. So this is just an added thing that you can do. Maps, I mean, when you look at Google organic now, so if I'm looking at digital agency, look how much space is taken up before they actually get to organic now, right? So like organic itself is about halfway down the actual page, right? We have ads first, then Google, then we have Google My Business, then we have people answering questions on their websites, right? The structured data, and then we have organic. So it's really important to optimize, all the things that you can possibly optimize to get, in these different either structured data, points, or also in Google My Business. So using all of these different tools that you can to show up in the various parts of where Google searches. And just so I know you guys probably don't know is, when you see this, you don't see the difference right away, but these are all ads up here. You can see where they are. So this is an ad, this is an ad, this is an ad. As you scroll down, this is Google Local, Google My Business. And then this is, the structured data on organic sites that are showing up as questions. And then we have top stories. So really we only have, half the page dedicated to the actual organic, like old school way that Google is listing these. So I want to jump into tools because we don't have that much time. We have about 8 minutes left. And I want to talk a little bit through these different tools that exist to help you with your SEO. The ones that I've listed here are Search Console, Keyword Planner, SEM Rush, Google Search. I search from Moz and Google Analytics. I know Ahrefs is a big one too. Richard, before I go into any of these, do you have like your favorite tools that you like?
So I think each one has a different specialty. So Ahrefs is great for doing backlink analysis, finding key terms, looking up competitor sites. SEM Rush is pretty good when it comes to the technical side of pulling out the audit and also tracking the keywords, and the traffic is a little bit easier there. Another one that's not on here that would be great, especially for beginners, is Ubersuggest, which is Neil Patel's tool. Does a lot of the same stuff that a lot of these tools that cost hundreds of dollars a month do, and it's completely free. And there's a premium model, but you can do a lot of this stuff for free. Also, not an SEO, but general marketing tool, that show notifications thing at the top left. That's a tool that you can get also for free, which when someone comes to your website, do you want to allow notifications? Then you can send push notifications to them whenever you want. But yeah, this is a great tool if you want to enter in any domain. It'll give you what's currently ranking for it, keywords, similar keywords. And I know you mentioned you talked about keyword research in the beginning, but especially if you're just getting into the digital world and you're trying to compete with monster brands, it's really, really critical to do heavy keyword research to find terms that are really, really specific. And if you see a keyword that has only 50 or so searches per month, you might say, I'll go for the one that has 10,000. But when you go for that big keyword, initially you won't get any search value out of it, because you're just not going to compete with the likes of Amazon or Walmart or any of these big brands, especially right at the beginning. So you have to start ranking for some of these really long tail, they're called long tail keywords. So instead of comfortable shoes, it would be, comfortable shoes that are red and great to wear in the rain, or something crazy like that, that has a very, very low search volume, but is very, very specific, and you could rank for it. And you'll get customers that way, you'll get traffic that way. And it's just, you have to start gaining momentum slowly but surely. And tools like Ubersuggest, Ubersuggest is a great one. Google Analytics is free. Search Console is free. That's where you can find a lot of those key terms that, and the best place to start is, if you have a site already, is to optimize the site for what it's currently ranking for. So you can find terms that are in the top 20, top 30. So you're getting some traction there. And you can filter these reports, which is a little bit more advanced. And you can see where the search position is, and then say, okay, I'm going to optimize this page for something that's in the top 30, try to get in the top 10. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck doing that versus trying to rank for a super competitive term right away.
Yep. So one of the things that Richard is mentioning there is like, how do you find what is ranked on the second and third page? So Search Console is a great resource for that. It's free. It's Google. You put it on you submit your site to it, and you put like a little snippet on your site, and then you start being able to see what you're ranking for and how your site is doing in general. And you can add these things like average position or total impressions that'll show you kind of like the overall picture of your site. And if you just put it in average position, you'll start to be able to see like when you look at a search engine, usually there's 10 organic listings per page. So this will show you, over time, what your average position is. And you can go to like page, 10 and above, or between 10 and 20, and see what you're ranking for, and if there's anything in here that you want to optimize further. So for instance, I see advertising features in Google Analytics. I could write a whole article about advertising features in Google Analytics to try to knock that up to the first page, and then link back out to the other ones that are currently ranking this advertising feature in Google Analytics, to kind of make a little spider web through my website that helps the overall traffic in there. So there's, Google Search Console is a great resource. SEM Rush is a little bit deeper of this, but it costs money. So you can weigh the benefits of you starting free, and then potentially as you get more and more, pro at it, using a better system like SEM Rush. One that I really like to use, and I found this by just happenstance. I was working on a client in Austin, and they kept telling me that I was seeing something different than I was seeing in Philly. And I found this site called I Search From, which allows you to basically put in the country and city that you want to see the search results in. And so that you are basically seeing an unbiased view of, without any cookies and anything like that, from whatever city that they are in, right? So if I wanted to search in Delaware, and see how my, or I'll just let's search in Wilmington, Delaware here. So I wanted to see like construction company. This will give me like a really quick just view of what it looks like in Wilmington, Delaware, from down here, from your internet. So it's basically just creating, an IP address that is from here and showing me what it looks like. So this is good if you're trying to verify for yourself what other people in other cities or in your city are seeing. Which, if you are starting to do SEO for other people, that's relatively helpful. Other places you can go is Keyword Planner in Google Ads, which is also free if you are advertising at all. But you can put in things like shoes and get search results for that keyword in Keyword Planner up in your tools. This little tool exists, and it'll show you things and give you a sense of like what the competition is around them, and what it typically costs on Google to advertise for, which can give you an indication of how many people are actually trying to rank for this keyword as well, and what the competition on that keyword is. So like the high competition, you're gonna have a much harder time with actually ranking for those key terms. Lower competition is you're more likely to, but like what Richard was saying, find some
keywords that are long tail, that are like phrases that have 50, 60, 100 per month, and try to rank for those first. And then that'll help the overall. Once people are going to those, it'll help the more competitive keywords on your website. So we are running out of time. So I want to just say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Richard, for jumping on this and giving your knowledge to this conversation. We're probably going to do a Google Analytics one next week. So you are welcome, Connor. Thank you for joining. And if you guys need any other assistance with SEO, please hit us up. I can give you guys Richard's direct if he lets me. I don't know. We'll talk about it. And yeah,
Contact me directly.
And we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
See you, everybody. Good luck.
I'll send out the Zoom. All right, take care.